Thank you for the warm welcome, Rob. Always make me feel comfortable here. I appreciate it.
No problem. Well, to kick things off, can you tell us a bit about your own career journey and how identifying key skills has helped shape that?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. My career trajectory is interesting to say the least. So I graduated in biology pre-med with every intention to go to medical school. I just look back on poor little Mara. She was cute. I even like went to medical school for a year. But then I decided to take a year off to kind of get away from the hustle and bustle of LA. I'm originally from California. And I was like sitting in traffic for 2 hours to get home for like a place that was like 15 miles away and it was too intense for my little brain. So I was like, let me get out of here. I decided to move to Barcelona to do a master's. Needless to say, I never went back, and I'm definitely not a doctor now. So I'm still living in Spain. But I do still identify as a perpetual student. So I really, really thrived in that academia setting. So even as a professional, while I was a student, I started designing learning experiences for university students globally. And then I ended up kind of dabbling into marketing. I got another master's in marketing and communications. And so eventually I decided to say goodbye to academia and I embraced the corporate world. And that's where I am now. And then you were asking about skills that helped me kind of shape my career. Honestly, soft skills, which are like non-technical skills, even the ones that I built in college have been the most helpful and pivotal for me. So, like knowing how to prepare a slide or like look at a sample under a microscope, that's not going to help me in learning and development or marketing, which is like kind of my niche within my career at the moment. But I was a lab instructor when I was in junior and senior year of college, and that teaching experience taught me communication skills, collaboration, strategic thinking. So those are the things that kind of transferred over best into my professional career. Another skill that didn't really come naturally to me, but that has been really helpful is data-driven storytelling. And this is something that we've been joking about. Is like I'm not a public speaker, don't love it, but just getting out of my comfort zone and talking and learning how to use numbers and statistics and translate them into a story or a narrative in a way that's persuasive to your audience. That's been super useful to help me sort of showcase the skills that I have and the initiatives that I've been working on and how that's affected, for example, our marketing acquisitions or our numbers and whatever. And that helps you get promotions. So in general, I think yeah, there's a lot of different skills that have been important, but those are the main ones, I think.
Well, I've worked with you for a number of years, and maybe you mentioned this, and I do not remember that you were a biology major, nor did I know you had two master's degrees. So I'm learning a lot about you right now.
Yeah, fun facts.
And I think it's so interesting, and I think this ties into skills because so many people I know do not, their profession is not what they went to school for. Like there's
Totally.
so many people that have learned those additional skills, usually through life and sometimes through courses that have really made them who they are today in a professional
Mhm.
setting. But a lot of it doesn't actually go back to their times at university. So it's so interesting
Exactly.
to hear that that's also your story as well.
Yeah. It just happens to be like very, very different. And but it's fine. It's fine.
Well, why is assessing your skill set so important when it comes to get promoted? You had just mentioned that, or switching jobs, or even asking for a raise.
Hmm. Well, I always think that there are two kinds of people, and this like applies to lots of areas of life. And I think it's probably a gross oversimplification, but I feel like there are people who feel like life happens to them, and then there's people who feel like they're happening to life. And neither of the perspectives are wrong. And of course, each of them have their pros and cons. But for me, when it comes to my career, I believe strongly that you need to be one of those people who happen to life. Like it's your career,
Mm,
it's your roadmap. You have to be intentional about your growth. So promotions and raises don't happen to you. You
mhm,
have to do something to make it happen. And so once you like understand that, then you need to understand kind of what you're good at, the areas that you need to grow in, and then that way you're no longer guessing and you can make intentional moves once again, happening to life to improve those gaps or close those gaps in the areas that you need to work on. And then you can also, once you have that, you can then confidently be able to articulate those skills and why you deserve that promotion. Which kind of brings me to another thought when it comes to getting a new job is like hiring managers and leaders, they're not just looking for your experience. Like you were saying, like they're not just looking at for certifications, especially nowadays. They're looking for your capability and your
Mhm.
potential a lot of the times. And if you're able to simply articulate the skills that you have and show it with evidence, with that data-driven storytelling, you can say like, hey, here's how I lead teams and these are the results, or here's how I use data to drive business decisions and be able to actually showcase that, then you're really positioning yourself for your next opportunity. So the best way to be able to get there is starting by assessing your skills. It takes the guesswork out of all sort of career development and puts the power into your hands to happen to your career.
I love that. Yeah, we talk a lot about recruiting, but the other key thing to talk about is retention. And a lot of people, when they're hiring someone, they want to see, oh, yes, you can do this job now, but can you do this other job 5 years from now? And a lot of
Totally.
that is seeing, does that person have the ability to learn, to grow, to add those new skills within the organization so that they stay here and they can grow. We can all grow together. So I love that
Exactly.
aspect.
Yeah,
And
companies want people who can grow with them. And so,
yeah.
I mean, you know, I think you were on my hiring panel back in the day, 4 or 5 years ago. And it's like back when I joined Power to Fly, I think I was like a copywriter and now I've grown and now I'm a director. And so it's like not to
Mhm.
toot my own horn, but you know, it's something like companies hire you because they want to see you grow with them. And that's really valuable. So yeah, being able to articulate that is helpful.
I love that. And in your experience, what are some telltale signs that someone has hit a skills plateau? So maybe they're just not growing where they should, but maybe it's hard to recognize that sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a few signs that come to mind. And honestly, I have hit several skills plateaus. I'm gonna like caveat this or start this off with like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes people don't want to be growing in their careers at a certain time because they really need stability or because they just had a baby or because they're moving or whatever it may be. So it's okay to be in a skills plateau. But I'm speaking to the folks who need to pay the bills with their skills. That's the whole point of this talk. So with that in mind, I think if you feel like you're constantly busy or constantly doing stuff, but you're not being challenged, like your brain isn't doing work, it's feeling like you're checking the boxes instead of actually learning. A lot of the times when we get caught up in busy work, but we're not like actually thinking strategically about ways to improve workflows or new technologies to automate things, that can be a sign that you've hit a plateau. Another sign that comes to mind is that you're no longer getting feedback that helps you
Mm.
grow. You might be getting lots of good job or Mara, she's great, Rob's awesome, or like nothing. And I think it's like a comfortable place to be, especially because like you're not rocking the boat in either direction. You're not like being exceptional. You don't have to like live up to this, you know, image, but you're also not being knocked for not being good enough. But the point here is career growth. So if you're not actively asking, or receiving constructive feedback, that might be a sign that you're just coasting, you're hitting that plateau. And then I think the last sign for me is if you're not sure what your next career step is, or like you stopped caring. Um,
Mhm.
and once again, it's a comfortable place to be. And want to reiterate that everybody's in a different stage of their life and career. So if you're comfortable where you are, great. But if you are looking to get a salary increase or you're looking to grow in your career, learn new things, um, you know, then you need to get to a point where you're inquiring, you're actively playing a role in whatever that next step in your career is going to be. So if you're not clear on that, just take some time to think, is this really what I want right now? How can I be more intentional about my career? And a lot of times when we hit that plateau, it's because our skills aren't being stretched. And so that's a perfect moment to ask yourself, what do I want to learn next, or what will make me feel excited again, or take a skills assessment to understand like what are my skill gaps, and that should help you get started.
Yeah, and I think being transparent with your employer is also such a key thing there, I think. So just going to your employer and saying, listen, I feel like I'm hitting a plateau. What other skills do I need to look into? So look into yourself, but I think also talk to other
Yeah.
people, say, what do I need? And also, like, maybe if you go, you know what, I want to continue to grow, but I actually don't want a promotion. Like, maybe I have other responsibilities at home and I don't
Mhm.
need that extra pressure. I'm happy here, so tell me how I can grow, but I'm not looking to advance. Like all that is all good. So I think it's just
Yeah.
having that back and forth conversation, both with yourself and with an external person, is very key.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it depends on your organization, of course, but here at Power to Fly, we have a very casual, transparent sort of vibe. And so if I go to my boss saying like, hey, I really want to build this skill, can I take a course on it and Power to Fly will pay for it? Great. Or what is a skill? We do regular performance reviews, and this is something that our supervisors are asked about us, skills and things that we could improve on. And a lot of the times it's like very specific things that you can, either get a mentor to learn about or take a course or whatever. And if your company is sort of following the advice that we talk about in the What Talent Wants survey, they're able to support you with that career growth. And if you're not able to get it through your company, it's really, like I said, it's up to you to kind of get what you need in order to take that next step.
Hmm. And speaking of that What Talent Wants survey, there's a couple of different categories that we saw that people were interested in. So there's people skills, business skills, and then technical skills. So why those three? And could you just like walk us briefly through each of those categories? Actually, what does that look like in action?
Yeah, of course. So Uh, my team actually put together these three sort of skill pillars, and this is like now Power to Fly's proprietary skills framework. And I think it does a good job to cover the full spectrum of what drives success in any role. So, like you said, we have people, business, and technical skills. So, with people skills, that really helps you collaborate and lead and build trust with people. So, some examples of that are conflict management, empathy, team development, collaboration, emotional intelligence. And then we have business skills, which help you understand sort of the why behind what you do. So it connects your work to strategy and outcomes. So think about things like negotiation, innovation, research skills, strategic thinking. All of those are business skills that will help you move the needle forward on what is the business strategy. And then lastly, we have technical skills. So those are like it doesn't necessarily have to do with tech. A lot of times we get confused, but those are the tools and methods that you need to actually get your job done. So it will differ depending on the job. So I'm a marketer, which means my technical skills that I need to know are SEO. I need to know how to copyright, data analytics. But maybe if you're a software engineer, you need to know different coding languages. Or if you're a designer, you need to know wireframing and prototyping. I think you get my point, but people who are strong in just one area are at a disadvantage when it comes to professional growth opportunities because companies really want well-rounded people. You really need all three types of skills in order to be an impactful professional. So when you grow across all those areas, even if it's just a little bit, you become more versatile, more valuable, and of course, more future-proof in your career.
Yeah, and so often we hear those people skills and maybe to a lesser extent the business skills being referred to as the soft skills. And of course you'll still
Yes.
see that, but I know you were very intentional in kind of rebranding that because yeah, for us, especially someone like me who's like a soft skills person, a people skills person, it's like, yeah, that does make it sound so much lesser. So I love that you are isolating these into more specific things and kind of uplifting those skills a lot more than maybe they have been traditionally.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and I think about a person who's very like soft skill heavy in your case, which I don't really agree with because once again, we always think about like technical skills being tech skills, but you have a
Yes.
lot of really great technical skills or hard skills that have to do with, data analytics and, some of the presentation stuff that you do. And but I think breaking it down like this really helps us see like, oh yeah, we're more than just, communication or whatever, whenever people think of soft skills, it's like communication and like collaboration, but no, you're more than that. There are actual skills that people are looking for, companies are looking for. And if you're able to build each of those pillars up, you can really make a well-rounded kind of professional.
I need my husband to hear this when he says like, "How do I not know the latest things in the iOS, the new iOS, or something like that?" So
You'll be
there's always room to
fine.
learn. Well, you were talking about skills evaluations, and I know you were also very integral in creating the skill gap quiz that we here at Power to Fly have. Maybe some people have seen that in a lot of the emails. I know we're going to be posting the link in the chat so people can take a look at it. But tell us, how does the skill gap quiz work, and what kind of insights can people expect to gain from it?
Yeah, definitely. So I love the skill gap quiz because it's great to see the results that people have already started having. So we launched it, I think, in November, and what we're in April now. So we've had quite a bit of time to see people taking the skills, understanding their skill gaps, and starting to do something about it, which is really exciting. But in short, the skill gap quiz is like a fast 5 to 6 minute self-assessment that we created to help people identify their strengths and areas for growth. We don't say weaknesses around here, they're areas for growth. So if you're listening live, I definitely encourage you to take it, especially if they're going to be putting it in the chat. It only takes a few minutes and it's just designed to be very insightful and not overly intimidating. You might notice that a lot of questions have to do with maybe if you're more junior in your career, with sort of leadership positions or something that you might not have dealt with before, and that's okay. The whole point is to kind of figure out how you would deal with a situation. And then once you complete it, you get a personalized snapshot of where you're the strongest or areas that you might want to build with some actual deeper suggestions on how to do that. And then we have a more in-depth skill audit resource, sorry. It's much more robust and it takes some more holistic views of your skills. So it's not just looking at your professional history, it's looking at your personal history. What's your communication type or preference? What languages do you know? What is your dynamic in your family? So it's very, very deep. And I'm going to throw a shameless plug. It's a resource called Skill Meter, and you can find it on powertofly.com/up/skill meter. And if anyone who's listening today is interested in that, they can get a discount code. So we'll give you 15% off by using the code skill up. I didn't tell Rob I was going to do this, but this is my shameless plug because I love Skill Meter and I think everybody deserves to have it. So
I
yeah,
love
I definitely think understanding your skill gaps is a good place to start. It's a good conversation starter too, like with your manager or mentor. It can turn your vague goals from like, I want to grow in my career to something more specific, like I want to get better at stakeholder management or I want to level up my data analytics skills. So it's a good place to start.
it. Now, a question for you too. I'm just thinking, so someone takes the skill quiz and it says, oh, highlights what they need to kind of work on, but then they say like, well, I got a day job. I've got 2 kids. I'm on the bowling team. Like, I've got all this stuff that I have to do. Like, how do I fit in the time to also learn all these new skills? Like, and there's a lot of pressure, I think, that a lot of people are feeling right now, especially in terms of AI and some other technology. So, what would you say to those people that it's like, oh my gosh, like, how they just feel overwhelmed. They don't feel they have time to learn these new skills, even if they're able to identify where they need to.
Yeah. It's tough because yeah, there's not enough time in a day to do everything. I'm actually taking a full stack engineering course, so becoming a developer. I actually don't want to become a developer, but I do want to know how to code. And
Hmm.
so it's one of those upskilling opportunities, and we have access to Skill Crush, who is another PowerToFly's partner, and we do a lot of amazing work with them. And I have the same sensation where it's like, how do I give myself enough time? I think there's two ends to it. Number one, you need to find a resource that's good. So, for example, Skill Crush is great because it has very bite-sized classes. So you can take a class or a lesson in, 15 minutes and feel like you've accomplished something for the day. And if you're just really consistent, then you can get things done. But on the other hand, you have discipline. And if you want to upskill, if you want to earn more money, if you want to whatever, you need to have discipline. Like I said, life is not going to happen to you. Success isn't going to come to you. You have to do something about it. So there's also that aspect of having a little bit of discipline. But another shameless plug, PowerToFly also has we have courses. We have Power Up. It's a leadership development platform essentially. And so we have courses on topics from data-driven storytelling to negotiation skills to conflict management. And those are all in sort of bite-sized pieces. So video is, each lesson is, 5 minutes long, and then it takes a total of 90 minutes to finish a class. And once you have that, you have a certificate of completion, and then you can add that to your resume or your LinkedIn. And that's just another skill that you're building. And so you have to find a really good kind of platform to start with, and then also need to be a little bit disciplined, with the whole thing.
But 90 minutes, that's like 1.5 episodes of like The White Lotus. So
Thank
it's
you.
not that long when you think about it. And I think
Yeah.
there's always little ways. I mean, of course, we have so many great resources here at Power to Fly, but I'll just throw on a business podcast when I'm doing some work,
Hmm.
just kind of absorbing it in the background. Or there's, YouTube University for so many people. I mean, there
Yes.
truly is so many things. I think they just announced today they had like 1 trillion videos on there. So there really is something for
Wow.
everyone. And I'll just throw some of those things on while I'm eating my lunch. So like maybe I'm not even giving it my full attention, but I know I am absorbing some things. So I think like
Yeah,
do what worked for you, like a full course like what we have on Power Up, or this, or maybe it's just putting on a podcast. But do think that
totally.
there is something for everyone.
Yeah, and you don't have to pay a ton of money to learn. Like you said,
Hmm.
university, it's free and you can learn a lot of things. When I'm washing dishes or when I'm cooking lunch, I do this thing called habit stacking, which is the act of like doing something while you're doing another thing, and then like you're associating that habit. So some people when they eat breakfast, they read 10 pages of a book, and that's like stacking habits together. And one of the habits that I do is I listen to an educational podcast every time I cook. And it just is something that I do, and it really helps. And, sometimes I find myself bringing facts. Rob, you're like the king of bringing up like random facts. Or I was listening to this podcast, I was reading this article, here's a resource. And it's like gold, gold for your team members and for your career growth. So it's great.
Amazing. Well, can you just also add in here, just so Sam and I can add it in um the discount code again, because people were asking about that.
Yes, I will do it. Skill meter discount code is skill up 15.
Amazing. Thank you. We'll make sure we're sharing that in the chat. And as we wrap up here, Mara, before we bring in our next speaker, just what's one thing that anyone listening right now can do? Like if they just were to take one step on their upskilling professional development journey, because again, we're overwhelmed, there's all these things. Where do we start? What's that one first step that people should be taking?
Yeah, I think the easiest first step is that skill gap quiz. It's free, it's quick, and it will give you a kind of that instant gratification of seeing where you need to start. Once you see where you need to start or where you're starting from, then you can build a map of where you need to go. And that's where Skill Meter comes in. You can build like a personalized learning map, but like just to get an idea of like where am I, especially for those of us who don't know. So I definitely encourage you to take that skill gap quiz, and Maya, if you don't mind sharing that again in the chat, we can make sure. I want everybody to take it so that we can start building our skills.
Thank you. And before I let you go, where can people find you, maybe if they have any follow-up questions?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not the best at LinkedIn, but I try. My name is Mara Gates, just like how you see it here. And yeah, just shoot me a message and a friend invite, and we can chat.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Mara, for sharing all of these insights and some of the great resources we have here at Power to Fly. And I hope
Mhm.
everyone else enjoyed it as much as I did. And I learned a lot about you in just 30 minutes. So
Fun facts. Thank you so much for having me. Talk to you
thank
soon.
you. Bye.